to invite our second session's chief guest, Dr. A. Shadiqul Amin, Assistant Professor, PG and Research Department of English, the New College, Chennai. He has 13 years of teaching experience in the field of English language and literature. He is also a member of academic bodies, board of studies, editorial boards, and doctoral committee of B.S. Abdul Rahman Institute of Science and Technology and Al-Bakhri Journal. He has presented papers and participated in ample number of national and international conferences, seminars, workshops, webinars, and faculty development programs also. His curriculum vitae is also added with invited lectures, chairing resource person, Beck speaking examiner of both prelims and Vantage. He has completed 9 number of MOOC online courses. Not only that, but also is taking live English classes in YouTube with a separate channel, Learn English with Dr. A. Shagul Amin. Indeed, we are gifted to have such a sound, knowledgeable person as our speaker of today's faculty development program on the topic Developing Hypothesis. With this word, I invite our today's chief guest to the session. Sir?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I hope my voice is audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good evening to every one of you. My name is Dr. A. Shadiqul Amin. I am delighted to be part of this virtual FTP. Thank you, organizers, for this wonderful opportunity. My dear participants, I think you have been receiving inputs on the topic research design and research proposal writings from the 5th of this month. 7 days, 14 resource persons, 35 hours of research inputs on the given topic. You are blessed, great feeling, all the best for your future endeavors. As part of this FTP, today, I'm happy to share my knowledge on the topic, Developing Hypothesis. I will try to share my knowledge on a topic, time given to me from 7 to 8. I will try to complete it. Okay, now let me proceed further. I hope my voice is clear. I can go, right? I can proceed, right? Okay, sorry. Excuse me, ma'am, whether my voice is audible? Shall I?
Yes, sir, it's audible.
Yes, sorry for us disconnected from the. Okay, now I want to show you where exactly my topic lies in the process of research. Can you form a mental image of the process of research? Where does it start and where does it end? I'll give you 20 seconds. Can you please form a mental image of the entire process of research? I'll give you 20 seconds because I want to show you 8 steps involved in a research process. I want to share my slide. Can you please form a mental image? I'll give you 20 seconds. Let me open my slide. I hope you can see my screen. Let me just open a slide and explain the process. Yes. You can see my screen? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, totally. Yeah, yes,
But
thank you.
it should be it will be enlarged. I think so.
Okay, okay, no problem. Yes, ma'am. I think I have to just give. I think you can see my screen. Let me start. There are 8 steps involved in the entire research process. Let me start with the first one. You can see the step 1, formulation of a research problem. Literature review, formulation of objectives, identifying research variables, and measuring scales. And the last part of step 1 is formulating hypothesis. This is the area I want to share, my ideas. Look at the step 2, preparing a research design, the problem structure, study design, experimental study, and non-experimental study. So this is step 1 and step 2. Let me go to the step 3, developing data collection instrument. This is step number 3. Types of data, methods of data collection, designing research tools. Then step 4, selecting samples, types of samples, probability, non-probability, determining a sample design. This is step 4. Then step 5, writing a research proposal. Here, the main elements: need, benefits, types of data, justification for funds and other resources. Then you have a step 6, collecting data, observations, interviews, questionnaires, schedules. All these come under collecting data. This is step number 6. Then you have step number 7, processing and analyzing data, editing and coding, a classification of data, tabulation, analysis, hypothesis testing, a generalization. The last step, writing a research report, title page, table of contents, chapters, bibliography, appendices. I hope you can, this is the structure of research process. Let me stop sharing. Let me just, yes, I hope you can see. Yes, I think you can see me. Okay, that's good. So 8 steps, totally, you have 8 steps involved in the entire research process. Now I'm going to focus on how to formulate hypothesis. That is my area. So I want to just start with my area. Really, I don't know, because of network issues, and I'm like getting disconnected every now and then. Really sorry. Now, before a plunge into the topic, I want to make this very clear. I will ask you 10 simple questions in the end of this session. Shall I ask because I want responses from participants. I want ask 10 simple questions in the end. So I'm going to start my session from now. Shall I ask questions in the end? I want responses from participants. In the chat box, you can. Okay, now, thank you. 2, 3 have said yes. Okay, so it's going to be very easy for you people. I will make it very easy for you people. Yes, I think you can. Okay, now. So how many researchers are attending this session? So 60 plus, because participants is 66. So 66, excluding organizers, maybe 60 plus participants. Okay, that's good. So this is going to be a challenging task for any resource person, because you are all ignited young researchers. I want to know from you, where is the starting point of any research? If you take any research, where is the starting point? If you want to answer, you can answer in a chat box, or I will proceed with my presentation.
Why, when, and what are the three things related with research, sir?
Okay. Where exactly it starts? The research starts at which point?
So from our inquisition, sir.
Okay. Now, good. Yes. Let me proceed. I think I've received one response. Let me proceed. Anywhere, anytime, any situation, any place, and so on, you get inspiration. You get inspiration from some events, or from personal life experiences, or from past or present observations, maybe study based or story based, society based, culture based, from general conversation, from meeting point, and through public forums, and so on. There are so many ways you can get inspiration, and your research may start. Now, yes.
Sir, it
Yes.
needs instinct and spontaneous searching. It needs
Yes.
instinct and for.
Yes. Spontaneous searching, that will happen only when you observe some phenomenon, right? Only when you observe something, only when you read, or only when you do something, you get that. You reach that point. Now,
Yes,
I
sir.
need your focus. Thank you. I need your focus for next 50 minutes. Now, let us travel into the minds of researchers. What exactly runs in the minds of the researchers? Now, this is, very well, all the 60 plus participants, very well, because you do research. Let me tell you in general, the first thing is you observe phenomenon. Then thinking process is on. Then based on observation, you select your passionate areas. You select your areas. From the areas, you identify potential problem fields. Then you focus on one area, then narrow down to one field, one problem, analyzing where did the problem originate. How does it formulate? Then studying issues from different sources, past experiences of scholars, through magazines or books or journals, through a detailed review of literature. Then, when we say review of literature, backing up theories are important for any research. So based on formulas or facts or theories, these are the starting point for research. And, you try to check the solutions from others. This is what you do when you do a review of literature. You check the solutions for your tentative problems. You analyze the criteria of the problems. deriving a problem statement, then you state tentative goals. So you try to imagine a solutions, you search for that, you explore and gather evidence and generate a creative and logical alternative solutions. So in the end, you can call this as educated guess. So these experiences end in formulating one particular statement. Can you tell me what statement is that? These experiences end in formulating a statements. Can you tell me what exactly the statements are called? You can type in a chat box if you want. How are these statements called?
Hypothesis.
Excellent, excellent. Hypothesis. Thank you, thank you. Now, so the hypothesis is a statement of prediction. So when you say, I want to predict an answer to the research question based on existing theoretical knowledge or experimental data. So we can say the hypothesis is a statement of prediction, or we can say it is a expectation or a claim or assumption, or it is a conditions, or you can just say that it is tentative solutions for the problem you have identified. So hypothesis is put forward for consideration. You know, you have to investigate. And you know, the hypothesis should be tested by scientific research. So what you do is you finally generate hypothesis after a long search, and the hypothesis should be testable by data analysis observation. You know, you have to observe, then you have to experiments, and you know, you have to test it through scientific methodologies. You know, sometimes some researchers, they focus on, you know, one or more hypotheses that can be tested and proved. Then, you know, the process starting with the hypothesis, then research design, then you have to collect the data, analyze, and finally you have to go for the results. That is a conclusion. So we test hypothesis and see whether they are true or false, or to check the hypothesis is right or wrong in the end. This is what you do with the hypothesis and when you test it. So I told you already that the hypothesis is tested through scientific method. Now, I already told you the process, you know, after observing a phenomena, identifying a problem, then you generate an initial hypothesis. Finally, you have to test the hypothesis by collecting and analyzing empirical data using some standardized procedures. I hope I have said this already. Now, after testing the hypothesis, validation through, you know, replication, you know, that the process happen, it becomes accepted as scientific theory. So now let me focus on hypothesis to theory. Now, this is what, you know, end of your research after testing a hypothesis, and you are framing that as a theory. See, for example, scientists investigating the death of the dinosaurs. Any guess or hypothesis for this? Any assumption? Scientists investigating the death of the dinosaurs. Now, for this, can you guess any hypothesis?
Sir, may I?
Yes, please.
Sir, in the case of any research,
Yes.
there are four different things. Number one, search and research. And whether it is search and research, we have to establish it, our aim.
Okay. Now, can you please frame the hypothesis a statement for the theme I gave right now? The scientists investigating the death of the dinosaurs. I think this is a famous study conducted by many scientists. So I want to just give that what exactly they have guessed and how they have come out with the hypothesis. So anything you can say, or I will proceed. Okay,
It
let
means
me.
a systematic investigation and study of material to make a
Okay.
new conclusion.
Okay, good. But what I asked for is the guess for the theme. Now, let me go further. Scientists investigating the death of dinosaurs, they put forward the hypothesis that no, there are many scientists. They have come out with many hypotheses. One scientist come out with this: an enormous meteor crashed into the Earth at about the time of dinosaurs become extinct. So this is one particular hypothesis. There are several investigations, and subsequent investigation has confirmed this hypothesis to a large extent. Now, it is the hypothesis is converted into theory. There is a strong evidence that such a meteor landed in the Gulf of Mexico. Through the study, we came to know that. So the hypothesis has moved from being a hypothesis to being widely believed to be a theory. Now, hypothesis should be a clear statement. Now, I will help you. I will tell you how to formulate the hypothesis statement, and after 10 minutes. Now, let me give you a definition, how the hypothesis should be. The hypothesis should be a clear statement of what is intended to be investigated. It should be specified before research is conducted. And you have to openly state that in reporting the results at the time of result. What exactly a hypothesis and what is the result after testing it, you have to mention that. Now, hypothesis allows three important things. Number one, identify that the thing that will help you to identify the research objectives. Number one. Number two, it will help you to identify the key abstract concepts involved in the research. Number three, that will help you to identify its relationship to both the problem statement and the review of literature, the chain between problem statement and review of literature. So the problem cannot be scientifically solved unless it is reduced to hypothesis form. So I think you understand how important is a hypothesis now. Hypothesis is a powerful tool of enhancement of knowledge. I actually, not only enhancement of knowledge, it is a consistent with existing knowledge. And this hypothesis will be contributive to the further inquiry. These are the three important things about the hypothesis. Now, let me give you examples for how to convert research questions to hypothesis. Let me show my slide. I will share my slide, and I will tell you how to convert research questions into hypothesis. Let me share my screen right now. Please, let me share my screen. Yes. Okay, that's. Yes. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, now let me just, you can see that, right? Research questions. Now, look at the first one. I have three research questions for you.
Hello,
I
sir.
want
Hello,
you to
sir.
answer.
Sir, just interrupting
Yes,
you. Sir, I was
yes.
disconnected because of bad weather. Please repeat just 2 minutes ago thing, sir.
Yeah, it is. I think this video is recorded. I think it will be shared with you. Anyway, right now I have started with telling you what is hypothesis. Then I told how to convert that hypothesis into a theory. Then right now I'm moving to research questions into hypothesis. Now we are in the third segment where I'm going to tell you how to convert research questions into hypothesis. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can have a look at the first research question. What specific experience and skill sets do IT firms search for in a potential employees? Look at the first question. What specific experience and skill sets do IT firms search for in potential employees? Look at the second one. Do arts and science colleges provide the talents that employers require? If the answer is no, what should be done to ensure that graduates are industry ready? Look at the third one. What changes should be brought about in the English curriculum at arts and science colleges to improve students' communication skills and thus prepare them for workplace? Now I have three questions here. Now I want to tell you how to convert these three questions into hypothesis later. Now, can anyone answer for the first question from your side? Can you answer this research questions? I want two to answer. Let me start with the first one, or I can take the second or third question. Anyone, can you answer, please? I have three research questions with me. I think you can see in the screen. Yeah. Anyone?
Sir, the skin is not visible, sir.
Screen is not visible.
No, sir, not visible.
Now?
No, sir.
I'm not sharing my screen.
No, sir. There is nothing visible in the screen.
Madam, am I not sharing my screen?
Sadiq sir, Professor Sadiq.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, can you please sign out and then once again stop sharing and then start sharing?
Yes, sir. I have done, sir. I have shared the screen, sir.
Now it's visible. Now it's visible.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, I think you can see my screen. Three research questions. Can anyone answer for any one of the research questions? No, I just told you a formulation of hypothesis, in the beginning. It starts with so many things and finally ended in research questions. Then that will be converted to hypothesis. Now here, anyone you can answer for the question, one of the questions. Okay, now no one want to answer for the question. Okay, no problem. I hope you can see my screen. Let me go further. See, I shared three research questions. These research questions are framed through exploratory research, in formulation phase. And, I have prepared these questions and I want to find answers for these things. And I ask you to answer for these questions, and I gave a time also, no problem. See, before formulating your research hypothesis, you have to read about the topic of interest to you. Then you can, from your reading, which may include articles or books or anything, any cases, case studies, and you should gain sufficient information about your topic that will enable to narrow or limit it, and express it as a research question. I have showed you the three research questions. And the research question flows from the topic that you are considering. The research question, when stated as a one sentence, and that is called as research hypothesis. Researchers will have a one or more hypothesis. These are the questions I have showed you that they want to address, which include predictions about a possible relationships about the things. As a researcher, we do not know the exact truth, but have a we have to wait for the outcome of the study. We make some prediction about the outcome, and this prediction about the outcome is called hypothesis. So it can be termed as educated guess. I told you already, and this assumption is tested by collecting information that will enable us to conclude if our proposal is right. By defining a hypothesis, there are some following features. Let me start with the first one. The hypothesis is a tentative proposition, and the validity of... Yes.
Sir, can we say hypothesis as a term, Greek word, coming from the two terms,
hypothesis, yes.
And
hypo, hypo plus thesis. Thesis means theory. Yes. Hypo means
it is an idea, suggestion put forward as a starting point for reasoning or explanation. I think it will be one-liner answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hypo plus a thesis. Hypo means a tentative. Thesis means theory. Tentative theory. Okay, now that is what I said in the first point. It is a tentative proposition. The validity of hypothesis is unknown. In most cases, formulating hypothesis specifies a logical relationship between two variables, and it must be generalizable, and it should be simple. Now let me tell you that when you formulate the hypothesis, you want to test it. You want to test it through scientific methods. So what you do with when you do a scientific methods, you can evaluate the data, the collected data, and you can analyze the data, and finally you can develop a theory. That is your answer for research questions. Now this is where I told you that 3 research questions I posted the slide. I asked you question, but your answer to research questions is the theory. So according to a definition of Creswell, the research consists of 3 basic things. I think I told you already: formulating, collecting data, and present the answer. Now let me tell you how to develop hypothesis. I will give you stage wise, one by one I will give you. I hope you will understand. Now I have given a background how to formulate a hypothesis. Now let me start with the steps, how to formulate the hypothesis. Let me start with the first one. First thing is you have to ask a question. I think you know what is research question. Now, writing a hypothesis begins with a research question that you want to answer. I hope you know what is a research question. I have shared the question also. The question should be focused, specific, and researchable within the constraints of your project. The second step is your initial answer to the question should be based on already known topic, already known data. You can find it through a review of literature. I told you this already. You have to look for theories, previous studies to help you to form educated assumptions about your research. At this stage, what you do is you frame, you construct a framework to identify your variables. So I told you, starting with asking a question, you formulate research questions, then you go for, you want to answer answer for the research questions. Then you find through a review of literature. Finally, you construct a framework to identify your variables. And finally, guessing a possible answer to your hypothesis, that I think that is important. Guessing a hypothesis and giving a possible answer. That is the end of your research. That after testing, that is your end. Now, let me tell you that how to narrow down your hypothesis, how to narrow down from the research questions. Let me just give you, see, in research process, I told you, there are 8 steps. My developing hypothesis comes in the first step, end of the first step. Now, in a formulation, I will tell you that, when you make a guessing or a tentative statement, you want to refine your hypothesis. You need to make sure your hypothesis is specific and testable. There are various, way we can use phrases, but there are 3 standard way of using hypothesis. Let me give you that. Okay, now how to frame the hypothesis. Yes, let me start with the first one. The first part of the sentence states the independent variable, and the second part of the sentence states a dependent variable. When you take a hypothesis, the statement, it will be like, if and then form. That is a form, I'm going to say, that's a first format. So the first part of a sentence states the independent variable. The second part states the dependent variable. And we know an independent variable is something the researcher changes or, the controls. And dependent variables is something the researchers observes and, measures. Now, let me show you one hypothesis, and this is as per the structure of number 1, if and then. I think you will understand. For 3 research questions I posted in this meeting, I have converted that into hypothesis. I will share that in a slide right now. Yes. Let me share my screen. I will show you how exactly I have converted the research questions into hypothesis. In one statement. Yes. Hope you can see my screen. Yes. Okay. Yes, you can look at this. Okay. Let me share the slide. Yes. Hypothesis. Can look at that hypothesis. Let me just maximize the screen. Yes. Hypothesis. If the course, Arts and Science Foundation course, offered during the first year of 3-year program at Arts and Science colleges is redesigned based on the corporate expectation, delivered properly by competent English for arts and science practitioners, and students' language skills are assessed effectively during and the end of the course, then the course will achieve its goal by instilling confidence in the students and preparing them to higher education, campus recruitment, and thus to the workplace. This is the hypothesis I have converted from the 3 research questions. I hope you can see the 3 research questions. I have converted these 3 research questions into hypothesis, and there's a structure I have framed. If plus then format. You can see that in my next slide. I will show you. You can look at that one more example I have shared with you. If a first year students start attending more lectures, if then their exam scores will improve. You can see if is cause plus then is effect. Now I'll just give you one more structure. Let me give you one more structure. The number of lectures attended by first year students has positive effect on their exam scores. This is number 2. Okay, now number 3, you can look at this another structure. First year student who attended most lectures will have better exam scores than those who attended a few lectures. I hope you can see there's a difference between the three different structures. The first one, if plus then structure. Second one is, it is about the correlations, or you can call that as effects. And third one is, you are stating the difference. You know, this is what I want to tell you here. I hope it is clear to you people. Yes. Yes, I think in academic research, hypotheses are more commonly phrased in these structures. Okay, these three structures. Number one is if plus then. Number two is it is correlations or effects, and third one is you are predicting the relationship between a variable. That is a third one. Now let me go to the next one, that is null hypothesis. You know, hypothesis. Now I think you know what is a hypothesis and how to frame it. Now let me go to the null hypothesis. And if your research involves a statistical hypothesis testing, see, for example, you can write a null hypothesis when there is no association between the variables. So let me give you one example. Let me just read one sample for you. Male and female students perform equally well in a numerical aptitude test. I repeat, a male and female students perform equally well in a numerical aptitude test. Here, there is no difference between the variables. I hope you can see there is no difference between the two variables, and you know it is no association between the two. I think you can I hope you have understood that sample. Let me give you one more example. The number of lectures attended by first year students does not affect their final scores. Here you can see the two variables are, there is no change. There is no scope, or you can say progress. Okay. The number of lectures attended by the first year students does not affect their final exams. Now, this is, you know, a null hypothesis. You know, there are different types of hypothesis. Now, let me focus on some of the common types of hypothesis. I will give you examples for all the common types of hypothesis. Now, let me start with the first one. The first type is a simple hypothesis. The simple hypothesis predicts the relationship between two variables. You know, there is let me give you an example. Smoking cigarettes daily leads to lung cancer. We have a different variable. Smoking cigarettes daily leads to a lung cancer. Here you can say that independent variable and dependent variable, you can see the relationship through the example I gave you. Now let me go to the second type of hypothesis, a complex hypothesis. In complex hypothesis, in the first one, in simple hypothesis, I told you there are two variables, number one and number two. In complex variables, you have two in the independent and two in the dependent. Let me give you one example. The individuals that smoke cigarettes and live in cities are more likely than others to have respiratory problems and increased cancer. You can see a dependent, there are two smoke cigarettes and lives in cities. In dependent variables, you can see respiratory problems and increased cancer. Now, let me read that again. Individuals that smoke cigarettes and live in cities are more likely than others to have respiratory problems and increased cancer. Now, the first one I told you is simple hypothesis. Number two is a complex hypothesis. And the third type is, I told you already about null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is when there is no relationship between two variables. I will give you one more example. There is no significant change in my work habits when I get 6 hours and when I get 10 hours of sleep. There are two different variables: 6 hours of sleep, 10 hours of sleep. But the statement starts with, there is no significant change in my work habits when I get 6 hours and when I get 10 hours. And this is a third type of hypothesis. Number one is a simple, number two is a complex, and number three is a null hypothesis. And the fourth one is alternative hypothesis. And we have to mention alternative hypothesis by just mentioning H1. For null hypothesis, we have to mention H0. The alternative hypothesis, I'll just give you one example you will understand. In attempt to disprove the null hypothesis, when you attempt to disprove the null hypothesis, researchers will seek to discover alternative hypothesis. I will give you one example for alternative hypothesis. My work habits improve during the times when I get 8 hours of sleep only, as opposed to 9 hours of sleep. You can see here the in the attempt to disprove a null hypothesis, I have come out with another alternative hypothesis statement. That is, my work habits improves during the times when I get 8 hours of sleep only, as opposed to 9 hours of sleep. This is alternative hypothesis. And let me go to the next type of hypothesis, that is a logical hypothesis. And I will share examples of all these types of hypothesis in the description of this video when I upload this. So let me go to the logical hypothesis. The logical hypothesis is a proposed explanation. We have to, possessing a limited evidence. When we have a limited evidence, we propose this logical hypothesis. There is a voice from some AI. So a logical hypothesis is proposed, when you have a limited evidence. See, you want to turn a logical hypothesis into empirical hypothesis and putting your theories. I will just give you one example. A cacti, the plant, cacti experience more successful growth rates than tulips on Mars. When you take the cacti to the Mars and tulip also to the Mars, and the experience says that more successful growth rate, cacti gets more successful growth rate than tulip on a Mars. Now, when we say that, when we test this in Mars, we have to prove it only when we go to Mars to check it. It is illogical. Okay, now only when we go to the Mars and when we go with the two different variables, a cacti and tulips, and we can find the growth rates. This is a logical thing. And let me go to the last type of hypothesis, and empirical hypothesis. And this empirical hypothesis are also called as a working hypothesis, that comes to life when theory is being put to test. See, let me give you one example. I want to add some chemical, we can say roses watered with a liquid will grow faster than roses working hypothesis. I change my hypothesis when I what empirical hypothesis is about. And there are several things to share, but time given to me is 7 to 8. I hope I have just conveyed my ideas, starting from how the research starts, from which point, then it moves down to the one particular problem, converting that into research questions, then a hypothesis. Then finally, I told you how to formulate the hypothesis, the three structures of hypothesis: if and then structure, then just telling about the effects. Then the last one is about telling the difference between the stating the differences between the variables. Then I just gave you different types of hypotheses with examples, and I will share all the examples I have conveyed through this session. I will convey through whatever I have conveyed in this session. I will share in a video description. Now, if you have anything to ask, up to now it is clear, or anything you want to ask, can ask me now, right now. Yeah, you can ask me. See, I have given the structure of my session.
Hello, sir.
And I've tried my level best
Hello,
to
sir.
complete it in given time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, there's a question in the chat box.
Yes, please. I will read that. So,
Sir, is it necessary to write the word sufficient difference word in null hypothesis?
Actually, when you say that you want to write a null hypothesis, there should not be any differences, significant differences. No need to show any significant differences. If there is any significant differences, then it is not a null hypothesis. It is alternative hypothesis. I hope the Alka Ratur has sent a message. Sir, is it necessary to write the word significant difference word? Significant difference word. Here, no need to mention anything, no difference word there, because there will be no difference in the null hypothesis.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, please.
Sir,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Each empirical hypothesis relies on experience or observation alone, often ignoring system and theory.
Yes, sir. Empirical hypothesis, it is completely relied on the the working style, working hypothesis. Only when we work, we will come to know about the validity of the hypothesis. So that's what I told you. It is about a life. It gives, hypothesis gives a life to a theory. Okay. So when we put to test using observation and experiment, and it is a trial and error method. It changes around those independent variables. So this is a trial and error, or leading to series of findings. This is what I want to tell you. It will changing, keep on changing, and it will changing around those independent variables. I gave an example also. I will share that example in maybe in a video description. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Participants, if you have any other questions, please do ask, or else you can post that. Or else you can post that in the chat box.
I think Saida Megar has sent a message for the third question. I think she means to say the research questions. Okay, third question. We can give students more of writing assignments and case studies. Very good. So answer, this may be one of the answers. Yes, more of writing assignments and we have to check every now and then. We have to assess their writing skills during or at the end of the program. Yeah, that's good. One of the answers. Yes, thank you. And Roy has sent something: communication skills, problem solving ability, and soft skills. And ma'am, this is the statement is answer for one of the research questions.
Sir, there is a question in this chat box. What is an operational hypothesis?
I will check it, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What is an operational hypothesis? I think that's what I told you, right? Empirical is operational. During the when we do the hypothesis, when we test hypothesis, that is operational. That is what? The same thing. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Participants, do you have any other questions? Yes, sir. The feedback link is on the chat box. You can fill the form. Sir, thank you for the wonderful session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
You
ma'am.
have spent a very fruitful time with us. It's very thank you for spending such a wonderful time. And there is another question.
Yes, I'll check it, ma'am. Chat box,
Is
right?
it must for the researcher to have an alternative hypothesis?
It is not. Is it must for a researcher to have alternative hypothesis? Yeah, sometimes when we go, when we test our hypothesis, we landed, in null hypothesis. When you say it is, when we reject a null hypothesis, that will obviously go to alternative hypothesis. That is H1. So when we plan for something, it is a null hypothesis. When we reject a null hypothesis, then it means obviously it will go to alternative hypothesis. I will give you one example. When you go for testing, you want to go for one of right now in pandemic, COVID test. So when you go for a test, you receive the results that stating that it is positive. Okay, so I think the result is okay. It's a good decision. Okay. Yes. Sometimes you get a negative report. I think it will be correct. Okay. That is also that is also a good decision. Sometimes you will be really positive but getting a negative results. What it is actually? There are 4 different types of results. Let me, I will show you one image. I hope you will understand it. I will show you that image. Yes, I think you can see my screen now. This is share my screen. Yes. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen here. See, when you is a correct decision. This is true, positive, correct decision. So
nothing on the screen, sir. There's nothing on the screen.
Positive. Correct. You get type 1 error. Yes. You're not seeing my screen?
Cannot see. Okay.
My screen is not visible?
Yeah, visible. It's visible now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can see the first one. You can see the first one. Accepting null hypothesis number 1. Correct decision. When you receive a positive report, yeah, correct decision. Now look at the second one. In the second row, you can check it. Correct rejection. That is when you get a negative. no, the real result comes that is negative, it is a correct rejection, no problem. But if you are, false positive, you're not positive, but it is given as a false positive, this is type 1 error. Then is another type is type 2 error, that is false negative. You are in type 1 error, that it is a false positive, and in type 2 it is false negative. So obviously, when you reject a null hypothesis, the next one is alternative hypothesis. I hope I shared the examples also. I shared the examples. I will give you more examples in the description of my video. Yes. Any other questions, ma'am, in chat box or? Is there any difference between types of hypothesis and forms of hypothesis? The forms you mean is the structures of hypothesis. I told you there are 3 different structures of hypothesis, and there is no difference actually. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion between these terms. You have mentioned that. Okay, now let me tell you. So when I gave an examples for types of hypothesis, hypothesis A, B, C, D, then the forms of hypothesis. I think forms means the structure of writing hypothesis, writing the statements. That is what the form means. Okay, now, thank you. Any other question, or we can?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you for the wonderful session. There is lots of appreciation for the session, and lots of people have told that it's a highly informative and elaborative session, and they have also thanked the organizer. And thank you for the fabulous presentation, sir.